Teka, okay na yung stream ko. Yan. Okay, bukas na yung stream ko. Gawin ko na lang yung daily ko sa ano and then tapos na yon. Ayoko na. Oh, daming update Wait lang ha. Uy, there's a new report on about... Sige nga. Let's watch it.
Mr. Sujano here. In this video, we're talking about Nintendo Switch, Nintendo DS, Xbox 360, Atari, and
Mag-react na lang tayo sa mga comedy videos, serious videos, kung ano-ano naman sa
we'll kick things off
YouTube.
talking about
Yun na lang
Xbox
siguro gagawin ko
360
because I don't feel so good.
Xbox Series X and S with
There.
Xenia. Xenia for UWP, which stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Universal Windows Platform, has just released with version 1.0.0. Now, if you think you've heard about this one before, it's because you have. We talked about it just a few days ago, but they're already out with a brand new improvement, and a really big improvement. Significantly more games now work, thanks to Canary and the new defaults. Thanks to Rookie, and it is playable for all of their hard work on that. Xenia on UWP now runs significantly faster thanks to Canary's improvements. In-game OS UI now works, fixing a lot of games like Sonic 4. So if you've got an Xbox Series X or S and wanted to try your hand at Xbox 360 emulation on it, Xenia for UWP is 100% free. It's open source, and
So basically
I'll drop a link
a
in the
way
description below.
to-
Feel free to check it out. Next up, we're talking about Windows
To
emulation
run
on
Windows,
Android with
to run
Exagear.
Xbox
And
360
there's a
games
brand
on
new version
Xbox
of
One.
Exagear
Pretty
that was
cool.
kind of just released, and it does improve game compatibility by quite a bit. It appears there's a whole bunch of games running pretty well with version 3.5.1. If you wanted to check this one out, I'll drop a link to this YouTube video in the description below, and feel free to check it out. And speaking about brand new games running well, next up we're talking about Nintendo Switch
Wait, what is
emulation on
Exagear?
Android with Skyline. And Skyline
What
got
is
a number
Exagear?
of different updates today. If you head to Skyline-1
Teka, what is
and
Exagear?
click on download, you'll see version 1844 has just released. And on top of that, the paid
Oh,
testing
Windows
early access
emulator.
version of Skyline,
Okay, my bad.
Skyline
Nag-alala
Edge
ko na,
just
nagets
got
ko
a
na.
brand new release, version 31. It fixes text in games like Crisis. It also allows Portal 1 and Portal 2 to go in-game, and it should allow Dark Souls and Monster Hunter to progress even further. Here's BlazBlue's Central Fiction up and running at a solid 60 frames per second, and looking pretty good. Some more fighting games, Melty Blood and Under Night Rebirth, are also up
issues,
and
but
running
just
and
as
looking
playable.
good. Someone has Risen up and running between 30 and 50 frames per second, and Easy on the Eyes has some Portal 1 and Portal 2 gameplay at over 100 frames per second. and
Ba't binago nila yung
arguably looking
camera?
alright.
Lagi
But
tuloy
moving on,
nakatingi
and
yung
we're still
nakatungo yung
talking about
karak ay
Switch
nakatingala.
emulation, but switching over to PC with Yuzu, and Yuzu got a brand new update. So in mainline 1332, which just dropped, adds a volume quick setting on the status bar. The user can now change the volume quickly
Added
by
missing
the quick
resolution
volume
value
section
and
on the
SMAA
status
option.
bar, making things simple and straightforward. And moving on to Ryujinx, the other Switch emulator on PC, and that one also got some updates. Version 1.1.603 fixes more cases of AMD GPUs crashing on higher resolutions in Fire Emblem Engage. AMD GPU fixes have been plentiful lately, and I think a lot of people are happy about
Reacting
it.
to the
Next
worst
up, we're
tech
still
ads.
talking about Nintendo, but this time about a pretty big leak. The Nintendo Dev Portal documents and tools and code have surfaced online. The leak overall is about 50 gigs in total. It contains source code related to tools by Nintendo that are used in many Nintendo Switch games and a whole lot more. It's very interesting. Next up, we're talking about Castlevania Portrait of Ruin on the Nintendo DS. Apparently, a lot of you like Fat Rosie, and if you like cats and you wanted to play a video game as a cat that's not Stray, well, Castlevania
Plus?
Portrait of Ruin has kind of been hacked up here to play as a cat. So version 1.0.2 of this ROM hack has just released. You can play as Maria or Byaco. I think that's how you say the name. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments below.
Okay, that is weird.
The cat has
Okay.
new custom claw attack weapons and a whole lot more. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to the ROM hack in the description below. Feel free to check it out. Moving on, and we're talking about the Switch again, and this time about a pretty impressive milestone. Apparently, the Nintendo Switch has officially outsold the PS4 for lifetime sales. The Switch is currently sitting at 122.55 million units sold. The PS4 is 117.2 million units sold. And this gap is only going to increase with time. And speaking about units sold, this one is pretty wild. We're talking about the Atari XP 50th Anniversary Limited Edition Set of 10 collection. It is completely sold out, which is very surprising
What the heck was that?
considering it's priced at $1,000.
What's that?
This is a collection of 10 different games that have been reprinted and are compatible with the actual Atari. Now, to be honest with you, when I first saw this price, I thought they screwed up the listing. $1,000 seems to be a little bit high here. And I was even more surprised when it was actually sold out. So I'm not too sure who bought these. If you bought one of these packages, let me know in the comments below. There's 10 games overall, which translates to basically $100 a game.
What the fuck?
I don't know how Yar's Revenge is worth $100 here, especially a reprint of the game. And I didn't even see one of the best games of all time, E.T., in this list, which is a little disappointing. But moving on, and I can tell you what's not disappointing. RetroArch on the Leapster GS. ETA Prime is going to be having a video on this one pretty soon because they actually have a Leapster GS. If you're curious about this one, the operating system is called RetroLeap. It's currently
I do remember a YouTuber making that video. It's cool, but not worth buying a Leapster GS over that.
Below. Feel free to check it out. And speaking about free and open source, last up here we're talking about Transmission, a fast, easy, and free BitTorrent client, and Transmission version 4.0.0 just released. In my opinion, this is a pretty big release. There's a bunch of bug fixes, improvements, and brand new features. They migrated the code from C to C++. It's more efficient, it uses less memory and fewer CPU cycles. It's compatible with BitTorrent version 2 and also hybrid torrents. I am a big fan of Transmission, and if you're curious about this one, I'll drop a link to it in the description below, so feel free to check it out. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point. All
what is BitTorrent?
No fluff. We talked about a ton today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos, don't tempt fate, save your state.
Okay.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Your girl's taking a break for a month now. Going to be taking a break for a month. So I wanted to relax with you guys beforehand. I want to tell you, Mika, you scared me. What do you mean? Graduating stream? Dude, I don't get how people assume I literally see you later.
Dear Mika, please stop saying goodbye and last stream. This is not good for people with heart conditions.
I put it on my schedule. I put it like, last free talk, see you soon. I'm going on a break, so no fixed schedule for this month. Like, I had a whole paragraph.
Neon donated 250 through Super Chat.
I'm so sorry. You scared me, Mika. I thought you were graduating. Chat, if I'm graduating, bro, I'm not gonna just title it bye-bye. It must be insane. I'd be like, Livers, Niji-Sanji Liver graduation stream. Like, that's my whole fucking title, bro. You must be insane.
Yeah, that's gonna be happening. Yeah, they still changed the camera. Because it's capturing my face in a really weird way. Now I'm looking at... Yeah, I'm just looking at like 30 degrees. And my model is like facing 45 degrees to 90. So what the heck? Okay, now I'm feeling something in my... Okay, never mind. Sucks, but I don't. Okay, teka muna. Stop muna. CCR ako. CCR lang ako. Okay.
What X-rated history facts don't they teach you in school? Story 1. Benjamin Franklin had a gilf grandma's I'd like to fetish. He wrote a long letter to a friend advising of the benefits of taking an older woman as a mistress. His reasons included, they are more thankful for the attention. They're more adventurous than younger women. They are experienced and need not to be trained. They are less likely to betray you in favor of another man. He was also very clear that the face ages, but the downstairs does not. In the dark, all cats are gray. Story 2. That one of the single biggest problems of the Lewis and Clark expedition was that they ran out of mercury after using it to treat rampant STDs, mainly syphilis. In fact, they used so much of it that some of their campsites, they had more than 600 in the journey, have been positively identified by literally measuring the mercury in the latrines they dug nearby. Also, York, Clark's one slave he brought along on the trip, was so exotic to many of the native tribes they passed that many thought he was magical, and far more interesting than the 24 white people around him. Many native women wanted to, and did, have sex with him, and several chiefs apparently offered up their daughters to him for the night in hopes that he would impregnate them and leave some of his magic powers behind to bless the tribe. Additionally, one chieftain thought he was a practical joke the white people were playing on the gullible natives by painting up one of their men. The chief even tried to rub the paint off before believing that that was his real skin color. Story 3. In Victorian America and England, ladies' dresses were often so large and difficult to remove that underwear had to be crotchless, so they could squat over the chamber pot without taking off their dresses. Since we're talking about shitting, do you know why they call it a stool sample? Toilets were often nicely padded and looked like little stools when rich people had the money to get one. You know, instead of shitting over a hole in the winter at 3 a.m. More shit, you ask? Sure thing. Did you know that heels became more popular among women because ladies' dresses would often reach the ground? Which was kind of an issue since most of the Victorian streets were covered in an inch or two of manure. On the note of manure, New York had a manure crisis in 1894. There were too many horses shitting on the streets, and the manure was too heavy to carry out and too frequently replenished that the only way to move it was with more horses. That would continue shitting. This is why cars became the norm. No shit. Underwear wasn't really even worn much before this period since most physicians at the time thought it was dangerous to keep your genitals enclosed. It was supposed that fresh air was good for them, and stale air was bad. Wow, the shit you learn. Story 4. Friedrich von Steuben, who was largely responsible for whipping the Continental troops into a proper fighting army, was kicked out of the Prussian army for being gay. Ben Franklin convinced him to come to the US only because he told him in America they wouldn't give a shit and would only care that he could fight. When he came over, he brought his boyfriend Pierre and greyhounds with him. Promptly fell in love with a man named Ben Walker who ended up being hired on as his aide-de-camp because he spoke German. And at the end of the war, he named the two of them as heirs to keep them in his life. His being gay was basically the most poorly kept secret in the army, but no one cared because von Steuben was so good at what he did. More fun facts. Since people seem to be shocked by homosexuality in the Revolution, there was only one instance of someone being drummed out of the Continental Army for sodomy. Most contemporary historians don't think it was due to the sodomy itself, but because of the rank of those in it. A Lieutenant Ensign was caught buggering a young private in one of the cabins in Valley Forge, and court proceedings were less about the acts performed and more about established whether or not the private had actually consented to do it. Ensign had been caught once before with another officer. If I recall correctly, it was Aaron Burr who stumbled across them, and given nothing more than a stern warning, so this was his second infraction. Since they couldn't really figure out if the private was coerced into it or not, he was drummed out. Also, there's a lot of speculation that John Lawrence was gay, but there's no way of confirming it, obviously. His father Henry wrote openly to his friends multiple times while he was growing up, asking for advice because John never showed interest in women, and he didn't know what to do to fix him. When he married, he openly admitted it was only due to his pity for the mother of his daughter, since he had gotten his wife pregnant after sleeping with her only once out of wedlock. There was some talk about Hamilton and Lawrence being together since a lot of their letters were deeply affectionate, and Hamilton wrote often about how much he loved him, even insisting on John being in the room when he consummated his marriage, and that the marriage itself would not change the nature of their relationship. John's grandson also blacked out multiple parts of their shattered letters that were too racy for the public. And it's been suggested that Hamilton burned some of John's letters after he died since there are so few, which was traditional practice for people to do with love letters after the significant other's death. Story 5. Julie d'Aubigny was a famous 17th century French opera singer who once took the holy vows to enter a convent just so she could have sex with a nun. She also had a habit of seducing women at parties, which would lead to their husbands to challenge her to a duel. She was an expert duelist and killed 10 men like this. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you are, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Alright, back to the video. Story 6. A love letter from famous writer James Joyce to his beloved. My sweet little whorish Nora. I did as you told me, you dirty little girl, and pulled myself off twice when I read your letter. I'm delighted to see that you do like being fucked arseways. Yes, now I can remember that night when I fucked you for so long backward. It was the dirtiest fucking I ever gave you, darling. My prick was stuck in you for hours, fucking in and out under your upturned rump. I felt your fat, sweaty buttocks under my belly and saw your flushed face and mad eyes. At every fuck I gave you, your shameless tongue came bursting out through your lips. And if I gave you a bigger, stronger fuck than usual, fat, dirty farts came spluttering out of your backside. You had an arse full of farts that night, darling, and I fucked them out of you. Big fat bellows, long windy ones, quick little merry cracks, and a lot of tiny little naughty farties ending in a long gush from your hole. It is wonderful to fuck a farting woman when every fuck drives one out of her. I think I would know Nora's fart anywhere. I think I could pick hers out in a room full of farting women. It is a rather girlish noise, not like the wet, windy fart which I imagine fat wives have. It is sudden and dry and dirty, like what a bold girl would let off in fun in the school dormitory at night. I hope Nora will let off no end of her farts in my face, so that I may know their smell also. You say when I go back you will suck me off and you want me to lick your cunt, you little depraved blackguard. I hope you will surprise me sometime when I am asleep, dressed, steal over to me with a whore's glow in your slumberous eyes, gently undo button after button in the fly of my trousers, and gently take out your lover's fat Mickey. Lap it up in your moist mouth and suck away at it until it gets fatter and stiffer and comes off in your mouth. Sometimes, too, I shall surprise you asleep, lift your skirts and open your drawers gently, then lie down gently by you and begin to lick lazily around your bush. You'll begin to stir uneasily, and then I will lick the lips of my darling's cunt. You'll begin to groan and grunt and sigh and fart with lust in your sleep. Then I will look up faster and faster like a ravenous dog until your cunt is a mass of slime and your body wriggling wildly. Good night, my little farting Nora, my dirty little fuckbird. There is one lovely word, darling, you have underlined to make me pull myself off better. Write me more about that and yourself, sweetly, dirtier, dirtier. You had an arse full of farts that night, darling? So poetic. Story 7. X-rated for violence rather than sexuality, but if you want the most absolutely reviling accounts of human brutality imaginable, read A Short Account of the Destruction of the Indies by Bartolomé de las Casas. One of the most memorable stories to me was, a Spaniard who was out hunting deer or rabbits realized that his dogs were hungry and, not finding anything they could hunt, took a little boy from his mother, cut his arms and legs into chunks with his knife, and distributed them among his dogs. Once they had eaten up these steaks, he threw the rest of the carcass on the ground for them to fight over. It wasn't just a disease that wiped out Native Americans so quickly in South America. The Spaniards were responsible for the genocide of hundreds of thousands. Story 8. When Blackbeard blockaded Charleston Harbor in 1718, he didn't ask for gold. He demanded medicine. The salacious part of this request is what type of medicine was requested. You see, he requested mercury and injection equipment. Back in the day, mercury injected into the urethra was thought to be a cure for gonorrhea. And after a long stint in the brothels of Barbados, most of the men in his fleet were completely infested. Thus, Blackbeard, the pirate, captured Charleston Harbor because his man-parts were causing him issues, so to speak. They don't tell you this in Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Story 9. Christopher Columbus kidnapped a Carib woman and gave her to his crew to rape. Michel de Cuneo, who participated in Columbus' second expedition to the Americas. While I was in the boat, I captured a very beautiful woman, whom Lord Admiral, Columbus, gave to me. When I had taken her to my cabin, she was naked. As was their custom, I was filled with a desire to take pleasure with her and attempted to satisfy my desire. She was unwilling, and so treated me with her nails that I wished I had never begun. I then took a piece of rope and whipped her soundly, and she left forth such incredible screams that you would not have believed your ears. Eventually, we came to such terms, I assure you, that you would have thought she had been brought up in a school for whores. Story 10. Anne Frank talked a lot about masturbation and lust in her original diary. Once when I was spending the night at Jacques, I could no longer restrain my curiosity about her body, which she'd always hidden from me and which I'd never seen. I asked her whether, as proof of our friendship, we could touch each other's breasts. Jacques refused. I also had a terrible desire to kiss her, which I did. Every time I see a female nude, such as the Venus in my art history book, I go into ecstasy. Sometimes I find them so exquisite that I struggle to hold back my tears. If only I had a girlfriend. The Diary of a Young Girl, Anne Frank. Story 11. I learned this in art class, but when Michelangelo was called by the Pope to paint the Sistine Chapel, Michael was like, "What the fuck? No." And the Pope said, "What the fuck? Yes." And basically kept asking him until Michael finally did. And he was pissed. He was in his 30s, he liked sculpting more than painting, and the Pope was begging him to do it. The Pope basically blackmailed Michael into doing it, because he kinda needed commissions to eat and stuff, and without them, he wouldn't. After he got done, 5 years later, the master of ceremonies, Biagio da Cesena, saw he was painted in The Last Judgment. He had donkey ears and a snake biting his penis. Michael did it on purpose because he didn't even want to paint it, but was forced to. Story 12. A 1st century BCE letter from a Roman poet to his critics, translated. I will sodomize you and face-fuck you. Cocksucker Aurelius and Catamite Furious, you who think, because my verses are delicate, that I am modest. For it's right for the devoted poet to be chaste himself, but his verses don't need to be so. Verses which then have taste and charm, if they're delicate and sexy and can incite an itch. And I don't mean in boys, but in those hairy old men who can't get their flaccid dicks up. You, because you have read of my 1,000 kisses, you think I'm a sissy? I'll sodomize you and face-fuck you. Didn't know they had Xbox Live back then. Story 13. Huh, no one's mentioned Theodora yet? She was a Byzantine empress about whom her court historian wrote a lot of weird shit. He literally said she fucked a demon, so there's that. Quotes. She was the kind of comedian who delights the audience by letting herself be cuffed and slapped in the cheeks. It makes them guffaw by raising her skirts to reveal to the spectators those feminine secrets here and there which custom veils from the eyes of the opposite sex. On the field of pleasure, she was never defeated. Often she would go picnicking with 10 young men or more, in the flower of their strength and virility, and dallied with them all, the whole night through. When they wearied of the sport, she would approach their servants, perhaps 30 in number, and fight a duel with each of these, and even thus found no allayment for her craving. Once, visiting the house of an illustrious gentleman, they say she mounted the projecting corner of her dining couch, pulled up the front of her dress without a blush, and thus carelessly showed her wantonness. And though she flung wide 3 gates to the ambassadors of Cupid, she lamented that nature had not similarly unlocked the straits of her bosom, that she might there have contrived a further welcome to his emissaries. Furthermore, some of Theodora's lovers, while she was on the stage, say that at night a demon would sometimes descend upon them and drive them from the room so that it might spend the night with her. Story 14. In 1863, Union soldiers stationed in Nashville suffered such an epidemic of syphilis and gonorrhea that the commanding General William Rosecrans tried to deport the city's prostitutes by riverboat, but no other city would allow them to leave the boat. Realizing that prostitution couldn't be eliminated, Rosecrans finally decided to legalize prostitution in Nashville, with each woman getting a permit to hook up in return for getting a weekly examination by a doctor to assure she wasn't infected. Story 15. In Japan, students are not taught about the World War II atrocities committed by Japan. Sure, wars are all about defeating the enemies, but not like these. Raped and bayoneted kids and babies for fun. Forced Australian nurses to walk into the sea and shot them in the back. Only one survived. Bayoneted patients at hospitals, including all the doctors, nurses, and medical staff. When the Japanese were trapped by American forces who tried to wait them out and surrender in a city in the Philippines, they decided to kill, pillage, and rape Filipinos still trapped in the city as a last resort. The next day, all the Japanese died and took down 100,000 civilian casualties with them. Ran some of the biggest prostitution rings ever seen, forcing hundreds and thousands of women from China, Korea, Philippines, Britain, Australia, etc. into becoming comfort women. Ran Unit 731, which was all about medical experiments, but in between breaks, the doctors, researchers, and scientists would visit some of the prisoners for sexual purposes. Some of the victims were still suffering from the experiments they were being subjected to, including one suffering from gangrene after a frostbite experiment. Her sexual organs were festering, several signs of sexual abuse, so the researcher gave up the idea and went back to work. Unit 731 also impregnated many women to test for fetal survival and damage to the mother's reproductive organs. For the sickest X-rated incidents ever recorded on paper, look no further than Unit 731. If you want to watch a movie interpretation, check out Men Behind the Sun. Unit 731 is incredibly fucked up. The United States pardoned them for the results of these studies. Story 16. The Romans had massive gay orgies daily. Everyone had a gay lover. The more wealthy ones had young, beautiful gay twinks living with them. The gay twink would get benefits while living with a said wealthy man. Yes, they were the first to create sugar daddies. Those in the army would screw each other. They were miles away from home for months, even years. They had natural manly urges to fuck something, so they screwed their fellow men. The president would sometimes have sex with congressmen. It would help with passing some laws and setting differences. King would have dozens of wives and dozen more men on the side to fuck. Just a whole lot of gay in Rome. The summer of 69 AD. Story 17. Long pig was the name for human flesh during the Great Famine in human history. It happened in China in the late 1800s. A multitude of factors led to this Great Famine. Multiple sources are proving it happened in that the Chinese consumed human flesh in greater quantities than ever was done before them, at least by historical probability. Basically, people were so impoverished and starved that they sold their children to butchers to be made into meat, aka long pig, feeding the starving masses that could afford it. I don't mean this post to be a slight against China or any other country, just a pointed fact that people in general will deprive themselves of the lowest of morals to continue themselves. Hunger is a great motivator for the continuation of our species as a whole. We'll do anything to survive and thrive. Morals go out the window when you're starving to death because moral thinking simply does not exist when you're starving to death. Sell them that do not benefit you and feed on mystery meat and whatever else you could buy from selling your uncaring relationships to butchers. No judgment in the post. As much as I can imagine, I really do not know what it was like to live in the late 1800s under unimaginable drought, famine, and a sense of despair. You can say these people were savages all you want, but how would you feel after a week of eating roots and bark? How weak will your morals become without substance to support them? I've heard it called the dreadful algebra of necessity. Story 18. How about the number of mass murderers in history who are glorified as national heroes? We can play a game and everyone comments on his or her very own example. I'll start. Brazilian. Getúlio Dornelles Vargas was our president twice, known as the father of the poor. He did some legitimate stuff for the poor people, but he was responsible for heavy propaganda, murder, humiliation, torture, and rape. He allowed his torturers to be cruel and creative to their victims. Even to this day, people comment on how good he was. To the common folk, but he just gave them little shiny souvenirs and suppressed them to the ground. He was better than his predecessors, but he was a dictator nonetheless during his first government. Story 19. Isaac Newton was obsessed with a lost art of alchemy. He was also said to have died a virgin, but had a strange obsession with blood, specifically the menstrual blood of whores, which he thought had magical properties. The walls of his room were painted red for this reason, little-known physics fact. He danced a fine line between sublime genius and what the actual fuck, Isaac? Story 20. Vlad the Impaler, the 15th century leader of what is today Romania and also the inspiration for the character Dracula, was extremely creative in coming up with painful ways to kill prisoners. He decided that impaling people through the ass with sharp wooden stakes and letting a horse pull you until it came out through your face wasn't painful enough, so he decided to stop using sharply pointed stakes and a horse and instead switch to impaling people with a flat stake and turn it vertically as to allow gravity to do all the work. That way, none of your organs get pierced, so the process takes a lot longer. He would also sometimes have his meals brought to him while he watched this happen, so that helped inspire the myth that he was eating the people he killed. Story 21. John Harvey Kellogg, yes, that Kellogg on your sugary cereals, hated masturbation and thought it would rot your children's brains. He thought spicy foods made you sexually excited, and so people were convinced that giving your child bland foods would keep the hormones at bay. This made Kellogg put into production all these bland-tasting cereals and graham crackers, which had little to no sugar back then, to keep your children from popping boners. As an added extent, he would advise parents to sew your young boy's foreskin closed without anesthesia and pour carbolic acid on your young girl's clitoris. He would brag about not having sex with his wife at 20 years. Alright everyone, now go eat your cereal. Story 22. When the convicts arrived to Australia with the First Fleet, there were both male and female prisoners. The male convicts were set off the boat first and started setting up the camp. A couple of days later, the female convicts were let off the boats. What happened next was called the Foundation Orgy. Arthur Smith, a surgeon with the fleet, described it as, "The men convicts got to them very soon after they landed, and it is beyond my abilities to give a just description of the scene of debauchery and riot that ensued during the night. So yeah, they don't teach that one in Australian history at high." Story 16. The Romans had massive gay orgies daily. Everyone had a gay lover. The more wealthy ones had young, beautiful gay twinks living with them. The gay twink would get benefits while living with a said wealthy man. Yes, they were the first to create sugar daddies. Those in the army would screw each other. They were miles away from home for months, even years. They had natural manly urges to fuck something, so they screwed their fellow men. The president would sometimes have sex with congressmen. It would help with passing some laws and setting differences. King would have dozens of wives and dozen more men on the side to fuck. Just a whole lot of gay in Rome. The summer of 69 AD. Story 17. Long pig was the name for human flesh during the Great Famine in human history. It happened in China in the late 1800s. A multitude of factors led to this Great Famine. Multiple sources are proving it happened in that the Chinese consumed human flesh in greater quantities than ever was done before them, at least by historical probability. Basically, people were so impoverished and starved that they sold their children to butchers to be made into meat, aka long pig, feeding the starving masses that could afford it. I don't mean this post to be a slight against China or any other country, just a pointed fact that people in general will deprive themselves of the lowest of morals to continue themselves. Hunger is a great motivator for the continuation of our species as a whole. We'll do anything to survive and thrive. Morals go out the window when you're starving to death because moral thinking simply does not exist when you're starving to death. Sell them that do not benefit you and feed on mystery meat and whatever else you could buy from selling your uncaring relationships to butchers. No judgment in the post. As much as I can imagine, I really do not know what it was like to live in the late 1800s under unimaginable drought, famine, and a sense of despair. You can say these people were savages all you want, but how would you feel after a week of eating roots and bark? How weak will your morals become without substance to support them? I've heard it called the dreadful algebra of necessity. Story 18.
Hey, what's up guys, Rev here. Sorry no VTuber model today as I'm currently on the road, but I wanted to give you guys a quick update on a few issues we recently talked about. So a few days ago, I talked about Twitter's new monetization system for content creators, and I mentioned that the timing of that announcement was no coincidence since YouTube had launched their ad revenue sharing program for YouTube Shorts on February 1st, meaning this was some sort of an attempt by Twitter to compete with them as well as other platforms like TikTok. While the monetization of YouTube Shorts is off to a pretty brutal start, I expected it to be bad, but it's actually even worse than I anticipated. Besides the fact that you need to earn 10 million views on your YouTube Shorts in the past 90 days to even be eligible to earn money in the first place, content creators like this are reporting the abysmal rates these videos are getting, earning only $18 on a short with over 600,000 views. That is horrible, by the way. To earn $18 on the average video, depending on the length, it would take somewhere between 5 to 20k views, which is only a tiny fraction of that 600k. And animators like this are greatly disappointed because YouTube Shorts have been promoted by YouTube as a huge opportunity for content creators who make short-form content that doesn't fit the traditional monetization scheme. Because the sort of magic number to get a meaningful amount of ads on your video is 30 seconds. So for animators, they've had to stretch out their videos to hit that mark if they had any hope of making ad revenue. And when it comes to animators and alike, adding even a few extra seconds is a lot of work. Shorts were supposed to be the solution to these problems, offering a more appropriate format for their content that would also give them a meaningful bit of ad revenue with it. Yeah, it turns out it's just as bad as the regular version, and I'm not that surprised because the way ads work on Shorts is that there's just an ad for every once in a while you're scrolling. Like, there's not that much ad revenue being generated. So I feel like a lot of short form content creators got baited into participating in YouTube Shorts to make the platform more competitive with TikTok, and then it left these content creators in essentially the same place. And that doesn't mean the exposure from YouTube Shorts doesn't help, like branch out and promote things like their Patreon where they can make money from there, but it's not what it was hyped up to be, at least for the moment when it comes to monetization. But before we go, I'm gonna just give you guys a preview. I rarely preview things I'm talking about on this channel, but we will be talking about the Hogwarts situation. Like, it is right now the night of February 7th, and there's, even in the last couple hours, there's been so many things happening regarding this situation. It's making my head spin. So there's a lot to talk about, and that will be coming in the next day or so. So stay tuned for that. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was a little bit of an update, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user Deleted. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife it's her own fault for not getting invited on a group trip? My wife, 31 female, and I, 32 male, have been together for about 6 years. We get along wonderfully and through everything have never had any major fights except for one thing. I personally feel like my wife makes no effort to get along with my friends. Now, to give context, all my friends and I went to the same university for undergrad, 3 guys and 3 girls that are married. My wife is the only one that did not have this common trait of attending undergrad with us, which is really not a big deal if you ask me. Early on in our relationship, my friends would always try to be friendly to her and talk to her when we would mutually hang out. My wife was cordial, but you could tell that she was uncomfortable. I would speak to her about this, and she would always comment that she was an outsider to all of us. This always personally made me slightly miffed because I felt that my friends always made an effort to include her and make sure that she wasn't singled out. Throughout the years, my wife would attend events with me, but would seem distant and would sometimes skip group events to hang out with her college friends if she had something else planned. My friends never said anything, but were always nice and treated her kindly. Well, this week I got a group text from my friends about planning a group vacation somewhere next year. I quickly noticed my wife wasn't on the group text and asked about it. I got a call from one of my friends who basically said that they didn't invite my wife because based on all the previous interactions, they didn't think she would want to attend. And even if she did want to attend, her attitude is crappy and they don't want it to ruin the vacation. I thanked my friend for his honesty and told him I'd think about it. And while I love my wife, I figured she more than likely wouldn't want to go on a vacation with them. So I told my wife about the trip and she asked about the details. I told her that while I was invited, she wasn't. And it wasn't because of anything she did, but because they thought she wouldn't want to attend. Well, this statement just seemed to be about how she is an outsider. She said that because of the history we 7 had together, she had no chance of ever being a part of the group. She then went on a rant about how my friends are awful people and that she deserved to be invited even if she didn't want to be there because she is my wife. I sat there and listened to her vent, and then finally I calmly told her that it was pretty much her own fault for not being invited because she had taken such a hostile stance with them from the get-go. She became a self-fulfilling prophecy about being an outsider. That's paraphrasing, but something along those lines. She left the house and went to her mother's. I haven't spoken to her in several days despite texts and phone calls to try and talk to her. I probably should have been more diplomatic about what I said, but I do feel my friends have been treated unfairly. Am I the a-hole? Well, OP, I would totally understand if you were talking about someone you are casually dating or not even in the committed part of the relationship yet. But in this case, your super awesome friends are excluding your wife. And you're just sitting there thinking, yeah, that seems fair. My wife kinda sucks, so she shouldn't be invited. What the hell, man? Do you want to stay married? Yes, you're the a-hole for this. As soon as that friend of yours that you talked to told you that your wife's attitude is scrappy and that they don't want her to be with them during the vacation but that you're invited, you should have said, alright, screw you, we're done here, bye. Now, you think your wife deserves this because, well, she's not so connected with your friends, and whenever you guys have get-togethers, but she also has plans from before, she skips your get-togethers to comply with the plans that she had before. And honestly, OP, that doesn't sound to me like she's skipping out on activities with you guys. She already had plans, so she was just being responsible and keeping her word to the people that she committed to first. Anyways, OP, if you want to stay married in your relationship and not be an a-hole, then you gotta talk to your wife and try to fix this situation. Because as of this point, yes, you are the a-hole. And what do you guys think about this whole situation? What is your judgment? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Bop Do Up says, you're the a-hole for not declining the event when they made it clear your wife wasn't invited. It's all couples, all spouses, except her. You can call it a self-fulfilling prophecy if you like, but they really are proving exactly what she's feared all along. That you not only didn't defend your wife, but thanked the friend who spelled out why she wasn't invited is the definition of yikes. Also, want to call out this line, quote, she would sometimes skip group events to hang out with her college friends if she had something else planned, end quote. If she had something else planned, she didn't skip your events, she had plans, with the equivalent group to the one you had plans with. Random user 71 says, you are the a-hole. This is your wife. She absolutely has been an outsider since day one. You had 4 years of life and inside jokes with these people before her, and it was your responsibility to help her fit in. You said your friends were nice to her, but there's inclusion and there's pity nice. How's the weather type of nice. I felt the same as your wife in my past relationship. Felt like he had a second life I was excluded from. He blamed me for not fitting in too, but he did nothing to help. Just left me with the other females of the group. I'm so glad that relationship ended. If you want to keep your wife, you need to make drastic changes. Daligeri says, I've seen this situation hundreds of times and been a part of it on either side quite often. Honestly, your friends made the effort dozens of times it seems. Every single time your wife would be there, from what it sounds like, they did make the most effort they could to talk to her. But you can't talk to someone who isn't willing to. Otherwise, it's like pulling teeth and conversation seems forced into shallow subjects of how's the weather, how's the job, etc. If you constantly make yourself an outsider in situations, you are going to be an outsider. That being said, she is your wife and your friends know you two should be a package deal. Even if they don't like it, it's still a courtesy to extend the invitation to your wife as well. Everybody sucks here, and OP,
hello
I
there,
think in the future,
Nell.
or even
Welcome to the
now,
room.
you are probably facing a harsh reality and
The
decisions
camera on
that
this
will
thing is
more
so
than
weird.
likely come down to your friends or your wife. Additional information from OP's comments. I did express my concerns to my friends about how my wife would take it, but the response was that they were standing on not inviting her.
I'm starting to feel
I
it
personally
again.
make an effort to hang out with her friends and their significant others. For instance, my wife loves to golf,
Sinisikmura pa
and
din
while I'm not
ako.
super into it, during the summer I will go out with her friend and her husband who enjoy doing it because I know she enjoys it. I don't feel the same reciprocation. Her friends are nice to me. That's never been an issue. My friends have always been polite to my wife. As I said in the post, it's been 6 years and she has been invited to essentially everything with this group. She sometimes doesn't come out because she has plans with her friends or just doesn't want to go. But she will generally at least come out and say hi to everyone. However, she has always said that she wished she had gone to undergrad with us, so she felt like she could be a part of the group, but it was impossible for her to fit in even though everyone liked her. Well, OP, it sounds like this everyone liked her part that you just mentioned was in your imagination because your friends are actively not inviting her to a group vacation. Anyways, the community says that OP is not the a-hole in general and there are some everybody sucks here sprinkled here and there. So it's that time that we move on to the update to see how this story ends, but of course, I gotta show you another playlist like this one that only has stories with updates on them. Go check it out. Now, let's move on with the update. Hi, I have gotten some people asking for an update, so I figured I'd give one. I deleted my original post because holy cow, I got some nasty messages from y'all. Some of which I'll say I deserved, and others were just absolutely horrid. But hey, I asked for advice and had to deal with it. As for the raking over the coals I received in the comments, you guys were right. A lot of your comments rang true and made me realize how much of an a-hole I was being to my wife. I don't have any excuse for what I was thinking previously, but it was wrong. And at that moment, I realized that without intervention on my part, I was going to lose my wife. Hell, even with intervention, there was still a chance I would lose her. It was a giant wake-up call to myself of how I was treating someone I loved and cared about. How could I be so callous and cold? Well, I started with a phone call and a text to her. I stated the same home waiting. So, what happened in the first weekend following everything? It was radio silence for about 2 days, which I spent the entire afternoon and that rest sessions were about requirements for our relationship to have to be met to even potentially salvage it. 1. Couples couple. I know many commenters said in my post that they didn't think I loved my wife, but I do. I seriously do. She's amazing and I wouldn't have married her if I didn't love her. So of course I agreed. She made it clear to me that even if I did do all these things, it didn't make up for what I call them came out. They apparently hadn't been told of this plan, and the two other couples had sprung it on them. When I responded about thinking about still going, they beaming, they were upset for more hours, lots of tears, but it did end with a hug. So where does that bring us today? In the months since the incident, and while things are not fully something I wish my wife friendships. One of the main things I have learned is that I was not as open as I thought I was with my wife's friends. Hell, she could have written the same post about me and it would have been correct. While I was nice, was I putting in any that I might how I had well she would. I've tried to remedy that and have been actively working to be more engaged and social with her friends. She appreciates. She's been much more outgoing and willing to talk to the greatly about the couples that planned the trip. I have talked to them once since, and it was a quick phone call to call my ex-friend, where I basically said I was going to go no contact if an apology was not issued to my wife. A half-assed sorry was given, but obviously done just to try and appease me. I haven't spoken to them since, and they haven't reached out to me. Good riddance. As for how my wife and I are, we are good. While I don't think I'll truly ever know how much I hurt her with my statements, I feel lucky that I've been given the chance to make amends. I gave her a small kiss on the cheek at an outing with J&K the other night. It's been the first sign of intimacy in a while, and my heart skipped a beat when she looked at me and smiled. It's a long road, and I consider this I put our relationship in. And hell, maybe in a month she decides that she has had enough, and I would only have myself to blame if that happens. But for the moment, I have started the process to rebuild my marriage and focus on the woman I love and owe a lot to. She is an amazing person, and I thank God I get the opportunity to try and learn from my experiences and become a better husband for her. Thanks for listening, y'all. Well, OP, this sounds like a happy update in the making. You dropped the dead weight of the bad friends, and apparently you kept the good ones, J and K. It was awesome for them to talk to your wife and see how she was doing and that they didn't like this whole thing. Good on them. Anyways, OP, all the best in the future in trying to fix your marriage, and thank you so much for sharing. Take care. Now, let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user Bleeny Houdini. They wanted to start messing with the cat that I told them not to. This happened about 4 years ago, and I still laugh about it to this day. My older cousin.
Why do I have chocolate tune? Huh. Oh, cut ear. Direct play? Okay. Freelancer. Yeah, I really like this game, although the game is... Oh, hello there, Seth. Welcome to the room. Oh, okay. I don't think this is gonna work. Hi, how are you? Anyway, ignore the title. It might be a little bit clickbaity, but it's actually the truth. It's just I actually feel not well, but in a literal way. Okay. Holy, that hurt my ears. It's too loud. It's too loud. Aray ko. Hey. Well, technically it's working, but it's just... Hey, what happened? Ah, here we go. Freelancer. Actually, sa YouTube to. Saka ano eh. Actually, masama pa rin ang pakiramdam ko. So, kanina dapat magi-games ako. Ngayon, nag-decide na lang akong mag-what? I guess magpatumpik-tumpik sa computer ko, then mamaya papahinga na ako. Maghapon na akong sinisikmura, hindi ako sure kung ano yung reason ng hyperacidic ba to, or may ulcer na ba ako, or hindi ko na alam. To be honest. Okay, so yun, simple put, hindi ko na alam. Masama ang pakiramdam ko, maghapon, ganon. Ay nako, hindi ko rin alam. Ay nako.
Roger that. All systems show green. SA-14, you're cleared for departure.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
We'll see in about 2 weeks.
Aray ko. Kasi ang plano ko talaga ano eh. Ang problema, may dinadagdag kasi akong additive ngayon tuwing araw-araw, kaso baka hindi hiyang sa akin. Pampabuhay yon para sana kay Commander. Kaso tuwing tinatry ko, after 2 to 3 days, sumasama ang pakiramdam ko. So I'm assuming na hindi masyadong okay yun. Ano ka bang tawag doon? Oo. Kaya nga eh. Sa ewan. Bahala na si Batman. E di hinto ko na lang muna uli hanggang di pa ako okay. Laging kasabay nun eh. Mga random games na ito mga pinag-ano ko dito. Anyway, itong isang to. The name of this game is Freelancer. Super old game. It was released probably by the year 2000.
President Jacoby has asked the LSF to investigate
About
the
2000,
sudden
year
destruction
2000,
of Freeport 7. No
2002,
word yet on whether
2003.
it was accidental or a deliberate attack. The first
Yeah,
handful of
laging
survivors
Batman.
arrived on Manhattan this morning.
We're here for medical. Is there anyone seriously injured?
One. Inside.
Hindi ko nga maalala bakit naka-install sa computer ko to eh. Siguro may mga plano akong laruin to dati. Kasi actually, ang YouTube channel ko, puro mga weirdo, mga lumang laro, or mga games na hindi naman obsolete, obscure, I guess, basically. Yan.
Make sure he lives. He owes me some credits.
Your concern is touching. We'll do everything we can. It may take a while.
Meron din, but actually hindi ako milik sa horror. Pero actually ngalaro din ako ng mga horror once in a while. Yari tayo dyan. Kaya ko naman maglaro sa totoo lang. Although hindi ako yung palasigaw na tao. Although mas ako mas visual. Napapaganyan, napapaganon. Umiigtad. Yan, umiigtad. Hindi umiigtad, hindi sumisigaw. Yan. Mas tamang term ay umiigtad. Tama ba to? Is this... Kaya mo na. Quit ko na yan. Saka na muna to. Okay naman siya. Nagana siya kahit lumang siya. Okay. How about this one? How about pa ba? Mega Man Maker, Princess Maker 2. Sayang wala na akong gana ngayon eh. Okay, sige. Thank you. Thank you. Salamat. Okay, sige. Tutulog na rin naman ako. Nagpapalipas lang ako ng oras kasi pag umukoy-koy na isikmura ako din, siguro na ako tutulog. Okay. Bye-bye. Oh shit, may hentai game. Bakit nandito rito? The voluptuous demon queen in our shoebox apartment life. Puta, paano ka titigasan ito kung ganito na naman puro... Okay, sige, bye-bye, good night. Ano to? Oh shit, I remember this. Fuck, natapos ko na to. Okay. Baka kumaban sa YouTube. Shit, I remember this. Whoops! Ba't nandito pa to? Ano kung natapos ko na to eh? Yeah, basically a power trip game. Wag na. Burahin ko na to. Tapos na to. Ayoko na. Natapos ko na to. Oh shit. Bakit napunta to dito? Oh my god, this is super old. I love this game before dati. Shit, I love this game. Fuck, gusto ko talaga maglaro kahit isang beses lang. Teka. Lakas ng volume.
Isaac and his mother lived alone in a small house on a hill.
On a small house on a hill.
Drawing pictures and playing with his toys as his mom watched
Christian broadcasts on television.
Life was simple, and they were both happy. That was until the day Isaac's mom heard a voice from above.
Heard a voice from above.
Your son has become corrupted by sin. He needs to be saved.
He needs to be saved.
To save him, my lord, Isaac's mother replied, rushing into Isaac's room, removing all that was evil from his life. Again, the voice called to her. Isaac's soul is still corrupt. He needs to be cut off from all that is evil in this world.
Evil in this world.
His sins. I will follow your instructions, Lord. I have faith in thee, Isaac's mother replied, as she locked Isaac in his room, away from the evils of the world. One last time, Isaac's mom heard the voice of God calling to her. You've done as I've asked, but I still question your devotion.
But I still question your devotion. I will ask
of you.
One more thing of you.
Isaac's mother begged. To prove your love and devotion, I require a sacrifice. Your son Isaac will be this sacrifice. Go into his room and end his life as an offering to me to prove you love me above all else.
You rule me above all else.
Yes, Lord.
Yes, Lord.
Grabbing a butcher's knife from the kitchen. Isaac, watching through a crack in his door, trembled in fear. Scrambling around his room to find a hiding place, he noticed a trapdoor to the basement hidden under his rug. Without hesitation, he flung open the hatch, just as his mother burst through his door and threw himself down into the unknown depths below.
Into the unknown depths below. Into the unknown depths below. Isaac versus Pin. The Caves won. And I directly go to the boss. Okay. I made a boo-boo there. Yeah, it's health down. Not so good. Isaac versus the Carrion Queen. The depth 1. Ouija board. Spectral tears.
Limit Ikes. Hey, yeah.
Hey, yeah. Hey, man.
Limit Ikes. How's your day been?
Well, actually, my day is not so good, and I'm actually just okay. I actually don't feel good. I'm not sure what is my issue with my body, but yeah, I was actually like feeling. I'm not sure if it's like hyperacidity or just I don't know, just air in my stomach or something. I just don't feel the whole day, and I was supposed to be playing a normal game, but I just decided to like basically, just look at the random games in my Steam stuff, and this is the one that I decided to play. Wait, what does it do? Book of Shadows. Oh, it's the shadow. Okay, never mind. Okay. So anyway, how are you? You seem to be new to my channel though. So anyway, how are you? Where are you from? I'm actually from the Philippines. So currently So anyway, the game that I'm currently playing right now is Binding of Isaac. Binding of Isaac. Except it's the slightly older version. Ow! Oh well, this is gonna be game over. Oh well. Anyway, I'm not sure. Have you seen my channel already? Have you... Yeah, you seem familiar, but I'm not 100% though. Okay, I'm just gonna stop that. I still don't feel 100% okay. What do you mean the Lost Vikings? Oh, this is the DOS. Yeah, this is probably DOS box. My ears. Yeah, this is the PC version. Okay. Yeah, it plays like the Super NES version. I like it. D, okay. Oh, E, okay. Yeah, okay, it's 11 p.m. here in my place, so yeah, I think I might just rest. I'm okay, but not totally okay. Could be better. I wonder if I would have the actual brain capacity to finish this game nowadays. I do remember getting stuck in this game on like level, I don't know, I think it was level 12 or level 20. I remember playing it on my Super NES and not being able to finish it. Now I'm kind of interested because, well, this is the PC version. The color palette of the Super NES while having the resolution of the Genesis because the game is running on 320 by 240. So maybe I should play this version. Huh. So I'm now kind of interested. So anyway, TLPT. You know. Anyways, better I'm here. And yeah, I just began the stream because I kind of feel bad. My stomach doesn't so good. And I just wanted to do something to pass the time until it's time to sleep. But anyway, it's 11 p.m. and time to me to sleep probably. So anyway, to anyone who has watched my stream, thank you for watching. although it's kind of a shit post basically. So anyway, if you have enjoyed my stream, my actual focus are actually obscure games like this, you know, the ones you have seen in the stream. I may be actually planning a full playthrough of these games in the near future. So anyway, this is RareVM. Hope you enjoyed that stream. If you did, you are welcome to press that like button and perhaps even subscribe to my channel. And as always, I hope that I will still see you guys in another video.